At 82, Margaret was the healthiest person in her neighborhood. Every morning, like clockwork, she would pull on her sneakers, step out of her modest home, and head for the park just 2 blocks away. While most of her peers struggled with the aches and pains that come with age, Margaret was out there walking briskly, with a smile on her face. Her daily routine was something the local residents had grown accustomed to. But what they didn't know was that there was something about her walks that caught the attention of the medical community, leaving even doctors scratching their heads. "How does she do it?" Dr. Harris, her primary care physician, had asked one morning during a routine checkup. He had been trying for years to figure out why his elderly patients often found themselves facing health issues, yet Margaret was as spry as ever. Her blood pressure was low, her cholesterol levels were perfect, and she had more energy than many of the younger people he knew. "I think it's just in my genes," Margaret would laugh, brushing off his questions. But Dr. Harris wasn't convinced. There had to be more to it than just good genetics. Margaret had always been an enigma. She hadn't been a fitness enthusiast her entire life, but in her 50s, she'd decided to make a change. She started walking for just 10 minutes a day, and over the years, that grew into a consistent 45-minute walk, rain or shine. The walks had become a ritual, not just for her body, but for her soul. She found peace in the rhythm of her steps, the fresh morning air, and the beauty of the world around her. But it wasn't just her physical health that had improved. Margaret's mental clarity was sharp. She could remember names, dates, and stories from her past with incredible detail. She had never felt more alive. Still, the question remained. Why was Margaret different from so many others? One morning, Margaret's neighbor, Tim, who was in his late 40s and had watched her for years, decided to join her on one of her walks. "I have to see this for myself," he thought. He was intrigued by her vibrant energy and curious to learn her secret. He was skeptical that a daily walk could have such a transformative effect on someone's health. As they walked side by side through the park, Margaret shared some of the small details of her daily routine. How she had always walked after breakfast, how she never hurried, and how she made sure to enjoy every moment. She also told Tim about a habit that had become second nature to her. She practiced deep breathing during her walks. She focused on her breath, inhaling deeply through her nose, holding it for a few seconds, then exhaling slowly. "The trick is in the breathing," she said with a wink. "It helps me clear my mind and refresh my body. Breathing deeply, it makes me feel like I'm getting younger every day." Tim was skeptical, but as they walked on, he began to notice the way she moved. Margaret's posture was straight, her pace steady. There was no huffing or puffing. She wasn't trying to keep up with anyone. She just moved at her own pace, fully in tune with her body. Maybe there's something to this after all, Tim thought. After their walk, he dropped her off at her home, but the conversation stuck with him. He was curious enough to ask Dr. Harris about Margaret's practice. The doctor, now more intrigued than ever, agreed to take a closer look. Dr. Harris decided to run some tests. He started with a simple assessment of Margaret's daily routine, comparing it to other patients her age. He quickly discovered that Margaret's physical health was extraordinary, especially considering her age. Her heart, lungs, and muscles showed signs of being much younger than her 82 years. But what truly caught his attention were the results of the brain scans. Margaret's cognitive functions were remarkably sharp, better than some of his patients in their 40s. Dr. Harris was stunned. He had seen the effects of aging on the brain many times, but Margaret seemed to defy the usual patterns. In an effort to understand more, Dr. Harris arranged for Margaret to undergo a series of tests with a neurologist. The findings were equally baffling. Her brain was not only healthy, it was highly active. The neurologist, after reviewing the scans, suggested that her long walks and deep breathing were helping her maintain better brain function by increasing blood flow and oxygen to the brain. "That's your secret, Margaret," the neurologist said with a smile. "It's not just the walking. It's the way you breathe. You've been practicing a natural form of mindfulness for years without even realizing it." Margaret smiled, a bit surprised. She had no idea that something so simple could have such profound effects. News of Margaret's daily walks and the surprising health benefits began to spread through the community. More and more of her neighbors started joining her, inspired by her energy and newfound wisdom. The park was filled with people of all ages, walking at their own pace, practicing deep breathing, and connecting with nature. Margaret didn't set out to be a health guru or a role model. She simply had a habit, one she had cultivated over years, and it had transformed her life in ways she never imagined. It was a habit built on consistency, simplicity, and listening to her body. Dr. Harris, too, was learning from Margaret. He began encouraging his patients to take up walking and practice mindfulness breathing, and to his amazement, many of them reported significant improvements in both their physical and mental well-being. Margaret's daily walks became a symbol of longevity, reminding everyone that sometimes the simplest things in life, the things we take for granted, are the ones that matter most. And as for Margaret, she continued her walks, one step at a time, breathing deeply and embracing each new day with grace and vitality. For her, life had indeed begun again. Margaret's simple but powerful habit of walking every day and practicing deep breathing started to ripple out beyond her own life. As more and more neighbors joined her, they began to feel the positive effects too. People who had never considered themselves particularly healthy started noticing improvements in their energy levels, mood, and overall well-being. One morning, Tim, who had initially joined Margaret for a walk out of curiosity, was walking with a group of his friends when he couldn't help but notice how much more lively and engaged they all seemed. They were laughing, chatting, and moving more freely than they had in months. "I never thought walking could change everything," Tim said to his friends. But Margaret's right. It's not just the walking. It's the way she makes us slow down and breathe. It's like we're reconnecting with something inside of us that we've lost over the years. Tim's words stuck with everyone in the group. The idea that something as simple as a daily walk, combined with deep breathing, could have such a profound effect on their physical and mental health was eye-opening. Mrs. Jensen, a neighbor in her late 60s who had been struggling with arthritis for years, was one of the first to notice a real change. "At first, I thought I'd never be able to keep up," she admitted during one of their walks. "But after a few weeks, I started feeling stronger. My knees don't hurt as much, and I can actually get up in the morning without feeling stiff." Other neighbors, who had seen Margaret walking alone for years, began to join her each day. Some were hesitant at first, afraid they couldn't keep pace with someone as active as she was, but Margaret's kindness and encouragement kept them coming back. "It's not about speed," she would say with a wink. "It's about consistency and enjoying the journey. Every step you take is a victory." And indeed, it became a journey for all of them. As the months passed, the park saw more and more walkers, many of whom were senior citizens who had once felt too tired or too self-conscious to be active. But Margaret's daily walks, her quiet discipline, became a beacon of hope, showing them that it was never too late to change their habits, to improve their lives. The once empty park now teemed with activity, as people from all walks of life joined Margaret in her daily ritual. And with every step, the neighborhood felt more connected, more alive. One day, Dr. Harris visited Margaret's home to check in on her progress, not as her doctor, but as a friend who had been deeply impressed by her transformation. He had seen patients who were struggling to maintain their health, people who were giving up because they thought aging had a set timeline, and there was nothing they could do about it. But Margaret was different. "Margaret," Dr. Harris began, "I'm starting to see something here. I've been thinking a lot about how your daily walks and breathing exercises are affecting you, and I can't help but feel that there's something to this that we all need to pay attention to." Margaret smiled as she poured him a cup of tea, clearly proud of what she had unknowingly started. "I never thought it would be this big of a deal," she said. "I just thought it was something that made me feel good, but I'm glad to see it's helping others." Dr. Harris paused before continuing. "I've been doing some research on the benefits of daily walking and deep breathing for people your age. There are a lot of studies that suggest it can help with memory, joint health, and even mood disorders. But the results I'm seeing with you, well, they go beyond what I've seen in my practice. You're defying the typical signs of aging, and I think we need to study this more." Margaret raised an eyebrow. "I didn't know I was a science experiment, Doctor." Dr. Harris chuckled. "I don't mean it that way, but the truth is, your daily habits are leading to something bigger. You're not just walking. You're leading a movement, Margaret. You're teaching people, young and old, that they can still live fully and thrive." The conversation left Margaret feeling deeply fulfilled. But more than that, it reminded her that she was never too old to make a difference. She had spent so many years quietly living her life, tending to her garden, taking her walks. But now she was becoming an unexpected source of inspiration. Her simple, consistent actions were changing not just her own life, but the lives of her neighbors. And even the medical community was beginning to take notice. As the months turned into a year, Margaret's influence continued to spread. The once quiet neighborhood had transformed into a hub of health and community. People of all ages gathered for daily walks, and those who once felt isolated now felt a part of something bigger. Margaret had unknowingly created a movement of well-being that was rooted in the simplicity of daily movement and mindful breathing. In the park, the sound of footsteps became a constant presence, and it wasn't unusual to see a group of people walking together, laughing and chatting as they followed Margaret's footsteps. It wasn't just about the exercise. It was about the bonds being formed, the shared experience, and the hope that each new day brought. Even Dr. Harris couldn't deny the changes in his own patients. He had incorporated Margaret's advice into his practice, encouraging more of his elderly patients to start walking, even if it was just for a few minutes a day. Slowly but surely, his patients started reporting improvements in their mental clarity, mood, and overall physical health. Margaret's small daily habit was having a ripple effect that reached far beyond her own life. One morning, Margaret took a moment to reflect as she stood in her garden, looking out over the park where so many of her neighbors had started their own walking routines. A feeling of contentment washed over her. She had no idea when she first started walking years ago that she would be able to create such a lasting change. Her legacy wasn't about awards or recognition. It was about the quiet power of consistency and the simple joy of movement. Margaret had taught her community that age didn't have to limit one's potential. With every step, she had shown them that life was what they made of it, and it was never too late to begin again. Margaret smiled to herself and took a deep breath, just as she always did before she began her walk. For her, it wasn't just about the walk itself. It was about everything that came with it. The peace, the health, and the connection to something much bigger than herself. Margaret had become more than just the woman who walked every morning. to the people who saw her in the park, to the neighbors who greeted her with a smile, she had become a symbol of something greater, a living testament to the power of small, consistent actions. At 82, she wasn't just defying age, she was redefining what it meant to live fully at any stage of life. One evening, as Margaret walked through the park, she found herself surrounded by a group of neighbors who had once been strangers but were now like family. They had all come together, not just for the walk, but for the friendship that had blossomed along the way. It was a quiet gathering, but the sense of connection was undeniable. Tim, who had once been skeptical, walked beside her, grinning. "I didn't think you'd still be walking at your age, Margaret," he said, laughing lightly. "But here you are, leading the way for all of us." Margaret smiled, but there was no pride in her expression, only a quiet understanding. "It's not the walk that matters," she said softly. "It's the commitment to yourself. It's the choice you make every day to get up and keep moving forward, no matter what life throws at you." Her words carried more weight than anyone could have imagined. Margaret wasn't just talking about physical movement. She was talking about life itself, about the importance of consistency, about making the decision to live with purpose, even when the world around you might try to convince you that you're too old, too tired, or too late. Her neighbor, Mrs. Jensen, who had been walking with her every morning for the past few months, nodded thoughtfully. "I used to think it was too late for me, that I was past the point where I could change anything. But Margaret, you've shown me that it's never too late." Margaret's heart swelled with gratitude, not for herself, but for the community she had helped create. It wasn't just about her personal health. It was about the lives she had touched along the way. By simply choosing to walk each day, to breathe deeply, and to take care of herself, Margaret had sparked something in others. She had shown them that life didn't end at a certain age. Instead, it was a new chapter waiting to be written. As the sun began to set, casting a golden hue over the park, the group gathered around Margaret, their faces filled with hope and joy. It wasn't just a walk, it was a movement of resilience, of purpose, and of life. The simple act of walking every day had turned into something much bigger than anyone had expected. Margaret looked around at the faces of the people she had come to care about. They were no longer just her neighbors. They were her family. And in that moment, she realized that her true legacy wasn't in the number of miles she had walked, but in the hearts she had touched, the lives she had inspired, and the community she had helped build. With a soft smile, she spoke her final words for the evening. "We're never too old to start something new. Life is a gift, and the more we embrace it, the more we find that it's never really over. It's just beginning, every single day." As they all turned to walk together into the fading light, the message was clear. Purpose, resilience, and connection never grow old. This part ties everything together, highlighting how Margaret's simple yet powerful daily habit of walking and breathing deeply transformed not only her own life, but also the lives of those around her. It leaves the audience with an uplifting and inspiring message about aging gracefully and the importance of making small, meaningful choices every day. As we reach the end of Margaret's inspiring journey, it's important to reflect on the powerful lessons her story has shared with us. Margaret's simple habit of walking every day, breathing deeply, and embracing life with a sense of purpose has not only transformed her own life, but it has sparked a movement in her community. She has shown us that it's never too late to change, to grow, and to make a difference, no matter our age. Her story is a reminder that the most profound changes often come from the simplest actions. Margaret didn't seek fame or recognition. She simply made the choice to take care of herself, and in doing so, she unknowingly became an inspiration to those around her. It's proof that we all have the power to make a difference, one step at a time. As we close this chapter, let Margaret's example inspire us to keep moving forward, to never stop striving for a life filled with purpose, and to remember that every day is a new opportunity to embrace the journey. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful and uplifting journey. If Margaret's story touched your heart, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that inspire and remind us all of the power of small, consistent actions. Here's to living with purpose, no matter our age. Stay strong, stay hopeful, and keep moving forward.